Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Marketing Corner. Today we are on episode number 33, and we thought that we'd be a little bit topical.
Yeah.
And do a little Twitter hot take, because Casper, you actually put a post up on LinkedIn that I thought was very interesting and very on point about kind of the lack of empathy we're seeing in such a huge takeover. And I know you had some things you wanted to say about it, so the floor is yours.
Thanks. In case you're wondering, we're talking about Twitter. And the thing is, today, the reason I think I at least really wanted to talk about this today, it's not that marketing related. It's not like we're going to drop a golden nugget on and you're going to be able, it's a huge takeaway. I just think it's one of those things where it's really interesting. So there's so if you haven't heard, or if you've been living under a rock, let's call it that, then Twitter was acquired by Elon Musk. There was a huge debacle. He was kind of first he set off an offer, and then he couldn't back out of it, and now he was back in it, and then when he showed up at the Twitter HQ, he was carrying a sink, and then he was his joke was let that sink in. You can call it whatever you want. But anyway...
I'll call it, that's lame.
That's super lame.
It's super lame.
And then the first thing he did after he went into office was fire the CEO, fire the CFO, fire multiple C-levels. I can't remember how many, at least 3 or 4 of them. Fire all of them and lay off approximately half of all Twitter staff, right? And he just did that in a heartbeat. Literally, that was the first thing he did. And so the post we're referring to that I did was just I was just saying, I'm no expert on restructuring, and there's people listening gonna be hey, you can do, maybe it's the right thing, and maybe Twitter does need restructuring. I read recently that it is the platform, the social media platform, I think that earns the least per employee. So I think there's definitely some truth in that part. My only point with all of this was just saying, we don't have to do things these ways, guys. It's just, do you have to fire people like this? Do you have to make these rash decisions? I know Twitter is losing a lot of money, but by the end of this discussion, I think we can also get to the point where it doesn't have to be, because it created a whole bunch of issues by doing this. Mm-hmm. And we're now, I think this is less than a week ago when we were recording, and it happened, and this has always been a plethora of issues. You can argue whether or not it's an efficient machine, but at the end of the day, these people have been doing something, right? It's not you're laying off, I can't remember, 4,000 people? They were doing something. And
they
now,
have families, and they have rent, and they have expenses, and yeah.
Yeah, you can't, I know it's mass layoffs, I'm not an expert on mass layoffs, but you don't have to do it this way. You could say, okay, let's maybe not do it the first day, let's do it the first week. I don't know, or the second day, right? To plan it a little bit better. There's no reason to do it this way. And I think that's kind of my point with all this. What do you think about all this, Jen?
You know what? I think, it strikes with me when they say you go into prison, you've heard this, not that you've been to prison, you go into prison and you beat up the biggest guy to show that you're someone to be feared.
Yes.
I think that's what Elon did. He went in, he fired everyone, he stopped the working remote policy that people had for a while. He just went in and he made sweeping changes. And it feels as though, I don't know what kind of due diligence was done, so maybe he knew who he was firing, maybe he knows what he's doing, but I kind of think it's I'm in charge, let that sink in.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of, look, I can do anything.
Yeah, and he's clearly had his opinion. I know from reading tweets earlier that he did not like them C-level, right?
No.
So, and don't get me wrong, I don't think the C-level is necessarily crying about this. They got a pretty handsome.
It was $44 billion.
Yeah. They got a lot of money for leaving. As we call it, a golden handshake, right? So they're fine. I'm not too worried about those. But it's more I think it's kind of brutal that it's coming to this point. But what I'm really interested in debating also here is kind of what happens next, right? Because what happened then afterwards was that the first thing Elon introduced was hey, we got to make some money. So okay, firing 4,000 people, and then he's boom, how do we make money? Well, we turn on so everybody can verify their Twitter users by paying $8 a month, if I'm not mistaken, right? So suddenly what happened then was that everybody could pay $8 to verify any account. So suddenly, you had a bunch of internet trolls. Hashtag welcome to the fucking internet, Elon. No, but come on, really, like you're suddenly saying, okay, for $8 you can be a verified troll. So all these trolls went online and verified all these brands across the board. And like you had, I can't remember the actual name. His friends called Ellie. I think it's called Ellie. They produce insulin, just like Novo Nordisk or something similar. And a fake account went online and said, hey, now insulin's suddenly free. Like, no hard feelings, but insulin's not going to be free. Not when this company, or these companies at least run it, but it's not going to be free anytime soon. And because of that, they had to come out with a statement saying, hey, it's actually not free. Sorry, there was someone else doing that. And their stock dropped 20%. 20% in a day. And it happened multiple cases where like, I think it was Pepsi lost a bunch of value on it. So many brands lost so much value from all this stuff. There was like, today there was a case that was brought up to I saw it was about, I can't remember, this weapons manufacturer who were suddenly saying, hey, we're not going to sell weapons to Saudi Arabia and blah, 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 until they fix some human issues and stuff. And whether that's a good cause, I'm not into that, but in point being, their stock dropped like 30%, right? And I think that's the one thing I want to talk about is the power of these social media platforms when it's just with one guy, like when it's just one person owning it, right?
It's dangerous. It's kind of dangerous, and I think the irony of it all too is I remember reading one of the first things Elon wanted to do about Twitter was fix the bots.
Yeah,
he's like, we got to get rid of the bots, but now he's just made all the trolls verified. So it's like, oh, I don't want bots writing comments, but anyone can now be verified, and if everyone's verified, no one's verified.
And all the moderators, right? Like a lot of the people he fired were people who were moderating Twitter, and I'm not like it's just weird. And you saw this weird week also, again, if you've been living under a rock, Meta announced they were firing 11,000 people, right? Laying off 11,000 people. As far as I know, that was at least done in a more human way. But it's hitting multiple different places, and I'm kind of curious on saying like, I'm really worried for Twitter's future. I'm not an expert on this stuff, but I do know a thing or two about social, because what essentially happened here, and this is something, Elon has always been known for saying he doesn't want to hire marketeers, which is, it's his take. But he's never wanted to hire a marketeer, and now suddenly he's doing this thing where he's like, okay, hey guys, we're gonna do this, and the whole brand around Twitter is suddenly plummeting, right? Like, cause who wants to invest in Twitter when you know that suddenly Elon can just like make a decision where it just drops off a cliff? Yeah. Like, there's a lot of Tesla fanboys out there, but this is a whole new level. It's a whole new game. So I don't know where this is going. I just know Twitter's not a platform I would be betting on anytime soon, at least personally.
I mean, for me, we also live in Scandinavia. It's not a huge platform for advertising, and it's not really widely used in America. Obviously, it's really big in the UK and stuff like that. I had been on Twitter, and for me, it was just troll central. Sorry, but if you're a woman with an opinion on the internet, you get a lot of shit. Yeah, exactly. As I found out recently. Right. And I was on Twitter and I would get death threats because I would post. I remember I had a travel blog and I was traveling to some place that people didn't like what they did in that one place, and they were like, we hope someone slits your throat. What the fuck? And it's just the wild, wild west. And I think they tried to get to grips with it because I think everyone knows that social media plays an important part, particularly around elections. I mean, there's certain countries, I think it was, I don't want to misspeak, but there was a country in Asia that 90% of their political campaigns were on LinkedIn and Facebook, or not LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter. Okay. That's where they're investing to get their political messaging across. And that's terrifying to me. Because that is, anyone can say anything. And people, you create your own echo chamber, right? I only follow people because I like the things that they say and they're aligned with my values, so I'm going to get more and more of what I like to follow, and I'm not going to hear the other people. Or if I see the other people, I'm going to say, you're an idiot, or you're an asshole, or, and it creates that division. So I think social media in general it can be pretty nasty with that kind of stuff. And Absolutely. I think they were trying to get it under grips, and now Elon's going to open the floodgates because it's quote unquote public speech
exactly. Yeah. And I think this is for the future. This is going to be like a case study of saying, like, there's a lot of people who always argue, hey, does it really matter what we do on social, right? Like, and I'm not saying United Fintech, Templify, Onomondo, Dixa, whatever the companies we've been at, well, we don't really have the magnitude of, Pepsi or something similar. But it's kind of crazy that one tweet literally lost a company billions of dollars. Literally one tweet. And so if you ever wondered, okay, does it matter what we do on this? Does the social presence matter? Then yeah. But also this is gonna, I can foresee a future where a lot of people are gonna be like, let's just back out then. Let's not do it.
Yeah.
And for me, that's also a little bit terrifying, right? Because I that's not what I want. Like, I want everybody to be there and in a good way, but this is just, I don't know, man. It's just, it's kind of crazy. And
and I think there's two things you're sorry.
Go ahead.
There's two things you're touching on, right? Is like one, the power of the social media, and then two is being shitty with layoffs. I mean, it's layoff central right now. We're seeing a lot. Playo had some, and we know about Klarna, and we've seen a bunch of stuff happening. Stripe, and there was one company that the letter that went out to the people laid off was leaked. And it was really empathetic, and people were getting... It was
Stripe, I think.
Was it Stripe? Yeah.
Stripe was pretty good about it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like... I think Stripe and Twitter happened within the span of 2 days.
Yeah.
And it was just like such a...
Contrast
of saying like, okay, Stripes, there's like... And especially like... Here in Denmark, we're kind of fine, right? Like, we're sitting here in Copenhagen. If you and I got fired, we'd get like 3 months of pay, and we'd have healthcare, we'd have education. Like, we have all these things. We'd be fine. Mm-hmm. But here, like, especially the Americans or people in worse countries than America, they're fucked, right? Like, they lose their medical insurance. They lose their jobs. They have 2 weeks of severance.
Yeah.
Like 2 weeks, you have to find a job in 2 weeks.
During an economic downturn.
Yeah, it's rough, man. That's come on, like, nothing's worth that.
No, and it's I'm sorry, we're kind of going maybe in two different directions, but I definitely think social media, it's what's also scary, it's yes, one tweet can lose you billions, but I think the scary part of that is because that's where people get their news.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, this happened, and then all of a sudden, boom, billions are wiped off the market. Exactly. So I think it's a scary kind of indication of where we're at in terms of how we get our information.
Yeah.
Don't get it on social media, and definitely don't get it from a verified Twitter account, because that means nothing. Anyone with $8 and an idea can be verified.
Exactly. and it's kind of crazy. And this is nothing. And the whole idea was to like create a better place for free speech. I don't really see that. That's not what's happening right now, at least.
No. So
that was our hot take for today, guys.
On Twitter, layoffs.
Yeah. But sometimes you just gotta debate what's going on, right?
Casper came in to record, and you could tell he had something on his mind.
I just wanted to talk about this because I feel like it's also one of those things where, like, if you're not talking about it, then you're like, okay, you're like recognizing this is happening.
This is happening. Yeah.
I think it's changing the game a bit.
It's really interesting though that I know that we're trying to wrap up, but the fact, you're absolutely right, I didn't even think about it. Elon doesn't believe in marketing, and he just bought a social media platform whose majority income was generated through marketing.
Yeah, he doesn't believe in it.
He doesn't believe in it. What is...
He doesn't, like, I can't remember, of course the Tesla has a marketing team now, but it's peanuts compared to everything else.
Yeah.
He's like, only engineers. And I don't know, maybe he's right, maybe he's not. But point being, it's like, okay, Elon, maybe you should listen to marketeers just once in a while. And I think they're trying to tell him somehow, I don't know how they do that, good luck with that, but please don't make tweets like that. Please don't change direction in the span of and it just goes to show when somebody owns too much of something and they can change the course of a company over the span of one tweet, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely insane. So to summarize,
yeah,
if you're going to do layoffs, do it with empathy.
Yeah. Don't
get your news from Twitter. Don't be nasty to people on the internet.
Yeah. Exactly, and
don't be a dick.
Choose your platforms carefully, right?
Yeah.
Like, be aware of how much impact it can have, what you do on the platforms. Don't be scared, but also be like, okay, be realistic about it.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
Thank
guys.
you. Bye.